Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, as always. We have a big show in store for you today. Listen to this lineup. In the 6 o'clock hour, towards the end of the 6 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking with Alisa Troccia. She's going to tell us about, I actually have it right here, the Miss Colonial Days pageant. They are looking for contestants between the ages of 4 and 18. You see all that information on your screen. We're going to learn all about it just a little bit later on. And then in the 7 o'clock hour, Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. He'll be joining us. We've got a lot to catch up with him. We have some breaking news that we're going to get to in just a moment, I should say. But first, let's go through some viewer comments. Rick writes in, oops, got him out of order. Oh boy, the ambush of the South American visitor to the White House. Trump has zero class, shouting out unsubstantiated claims of genocide of white South African farmers. South Africa is very dangerous. Some of my colleagues went there and worked. Go to work, then straight back home to the bars on the windows. Not a safe place. The networks are saying 0.1% to 0.4% of the nearly 20,000 people murdered there are farmers. I think South Africa came there to work on trade talks. That ain't happening. I would say one of the problems I have, just as a side note, and I don't try to interject, but when I hear the networks are saying, I think after the last 4 years, that's not a source I would cite. I'll put it that way. I think the credibility of saying the networks are saying they lost all credibility, but I will continue. Then he shuts Peter Alexander down after a question about the Qatar airplane. I think, and I hope I'm not misquoting you, Rick, but there was a typo. I'm assuming you said, I think Peter is one of the best. And again, I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth. He continues, Trump retreats on ending Ukraine war, says not our war, not our people, not our soldiers. So much for ending the war in 24 hours. Pope Leo says the Vatican is ready to hold peace talks with Ukraine and Russia. Question, isn't Putin supposed to be arrested for war crimes if he leaves Russia? That's a good question. I'm still shocked how he treated the South African delegation today. Unhinged. He's nuts. If he wants to worry about something, look at the treatment the Palestinians are suffering through in Gaza. No shelter, no food, starving to death, and the world just stands way back and does nothing sad. The big beautiful adds $4 trillion to the deficit bill is getting close. So tax breaks funded by getting people off Medicaid. I agree there are a lot of people taking advantage of the system. Trump's team needs to make sure they throw the right people out of the program. They haven't used any discretion in any other cuts that have occurred. This will be another doozy to watch. They'll throw 1 million people off Medicaid in 3 days with no regard for anyone's situation. Got to pay for those tax cuts and gas for the next jet. I will say, to the point about Medicaid, Trump and the Republicans will need to get it 100% right on who they cut, because the networks, to go back to what Rick was saying, will find the one case that perhaps does not go well and focus laser-like on that scenario. But thank you for the comment. Mark writes in, good morning. Well, good morning, Mark. Oh, I forgot to put my waves up. I have a couple waves. Sorry about that. I see the Pentagon accepted the $400 million jet from Qatar for President Trump, and they did it the legal way. But I bet the Democrats will turn it around to suit them. There's no doubt. We're going to talk about that as one of the breaking stories. I do have some other breaking news. But first, on the local front, this came to my desk yesterday afternoon. And in case you missed it, I wanted to pass it along to you. This is from the office of District Attorney Brooks Baker. The Steuben County Grand Jury has handed up an indictment charging 35-year-old Carrie A. Warner of Pain and Post with 30 criminal counts based upon thefts from the CSEA Union and Calvin U. Smith Parent-Teacher Association over a period beginning in August of 2024 and ending when the scheme was discovered in February of 2025. So not a long period of time, but quite a lot of money allegedly taken. According to the district attorney, Brooks Baker, the case came to light when Corning Pain and Post school district officials were made aware that a substantial check from the Calvin U. Smith PTA to a vendor for a school fundraiser sponsored by the PTA had been returned for insufficient funds. The defendant was at the time the treasurer for the PTA and in charge of the fundraising effort. She was also serving as treasurer for a CSEA unit at the school. Investigation into the accounts of both entities by the New York State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation Unit out of the Painted Post Barracks determined that Carrie Warner had stolen more than $25,000 from the CSEA and over $20,000 from the PTA through a series of thefts, unauthorized withdrawals, and falsified business records. Just quickly, we'll read through the charges. 14 counts of grand larceny in the fourth degree, each a Class E felony, alleging she intentionally stole property, currency, in the amount exceeding $1,000 on 14 occasions. 4 counts of grand larceny in the third degree, each a Class D felony, alleging she intentionally stole property, again, U.S. currency, in an amount exceeding $3,000 on 4 occasions. 4 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree, each a Class D felony, alleging that with the intent to defraud, she made false entries into the business records of the PTA and or CSEA union to cover the crimes of larceny on 4 occasions. 1 count of scheme to defraud in the first degree, a Class E felony, alleging that Warner engaged in a systematic, ongoing course of conduct with intent to defraud more than one person and so obtain property with a value in excess of $1,000 from one or more such persons. 1 count of forgery in the second degree, a Class D felony, that, with the intent to defraud, she falsely completed a commercial instrument, a check. And finally, 6 counts of petty larceny, each a Class A misdemeanor, alleging the defendant stole property, again U.S. currency, in the amounts of $1,000 or less on 6 occasions. Defendant, who was previously arraigned on a felony complaint in the Steuben County Centralized Arraignment Part, is currently at liberty, released as required by New York's bail reform statutes. Yes, she is out because of bail reform. Let me read that again. Is currently at liberty, released as required by New York's bail reform statutes to pretrial probation supervision. She has retained counsel and will be arraigned in Steuben County Court at a future date. So we'll keep you up on that. That broke late yesterday, and I wanted to make sure that that came to your attention again. Carrie A. Warner. 30 criminal counts based upon thefts from the CSEA Union and Calvin U. Smith PTA. Also, yesterday we talked about the school budgets, and we had 2 budgets locally that failed, one worse than the other. Horseheads received 51% yes votes, but they needed to hit that 60% threshold, and so that therefore it failed. At Corning Painted Post School District, of course, nearly 60% voted no to that major increase. We'll keep you updated on that, but the reason it failed, we'll see what they propose in the future. You've heard my whole thoughts on that. We discussed it at length yesterday. But just to give you an update statewide, similar to last year's school budget vote, 97% of New York school districts voted in favor of their budgets, with the number rising to 99% for school districts staying within the property tax cap. Well, maybe something for Corning Painted Post to keep in mind, and Horseheads. 99% passing rate for schools staying within the property tax cap. 42 districts statewide sought to override the 2% property tax cap. Those districts needed a supermajority, that 60% of voters, to pass their budget. 17 of those attempts failed. So 2 of the 17 local, in our backyard. The districts will likely revamp their budgets and try again, yes, in June. Now, this is one of the problems that I always have, because they shot very high, specifically at Corning Painted Post with that nearly 8%. So they'll probably come in and say they tighten their belts and it's 5.9, something like that. And that number would still be an outrage if that were the first they proposed, but people will say, well, they tried and perhaps pass it. That's what happened last year. We'll see what happens this year if people have had enough. I know from comments on the program, many people are still very solidly a no vote, but there will be most likely another try in June. According to David Albert, Chief Communications and Marketing Officer at the New York State School Boards Association, because the state budget was so late, many school districts had to dip into their rainy day fund to balance their budget. So there you are. Oh, by the way, It says here, we did get some relief in this year's budget. Districts can now get a second 2-year waiver for the purchase mandate on electric buses. New York is transitioning to a 100% zero-emission electric school bus fleet by 2035. It's too early to know how many transportation propositions were passed in this year's school budget vote. But there you are, 97% of New York school districts voted in favor of their budgets, where Horseheads and Corning Painted Post did not. Okay, on a very, very sad note, 2 Israeli diplomats were shot and killed during an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. We know this anti-Semitism has run amok. It's been festering on college campuses, but unfortunately, it's all unfortunate, but we've also seen it in the streets of places like New York City, in major cities. A pro-Palestinian man, so in other terms, an anti-Israel, pro-Hamas man, is in custody after allegedly killing 2 Israeli embassy staff members who were leaving an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. late last night. The Embassy of Israel to the U.S. identified the victims as Yaron Lishinsky and Sarah Milgram, who were set to be engaged. Metropolitan Police Department Chief Pamela Smith said during a news conference that officers responded to multiple calls of a shooting near the museum around 9:08 p.m. yesterday. When authorities arrived at the scene, a man and woman were found unconscious and not breathing. Despite life-saving efforts from first responders, Smith said both were pronounced dead. A 30-year-old man identified as Elias Rodriguez of Chicago is believed to have committed the act alone and is in custody, adding that the gun was also recovered. Smith said the preliminary investigation shows Rodriguez was allegedly observed pacing back and forth outside the museum before he approached a group of 4 people exiting the building, including the 2 victims, and began shooting. He then entered the museum, where he was detained by event security. While in custody, he yelled, "Free, free Palestine." They are calling this an act of terrorism. The event at the museum was for young Jewish professionals who work in foreign policy and had a panel discussion focused on finding humanitarian solutions for Gaza. This couple in the prime of their lives. It was reported that they were on the verge of engagement, that the man had purchased a ring with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said that the DHS is actively investigating the incident and working to get more information to share. Please pray for the families of these victims. We will bring this depraved perpetrator to justice. Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the UN, said the deadly shooting was a depraved act of anti-Semitic terrorism. Harming diplomats in the Jewish community is crossing a red line. We are confident that the U.S. authorities will take strong action against those responsible for this criminal act. Israel will continue to act resolutely to protect its citizens and representatives everywhere in the world. So yelling, free, free Palestine. This, obviously, we've seen a lot of, unfortunately, even encouragement of this anti-Semitism on college campuses and elsewhere. We heard Van Jones say during the presidential campaign that the Democrat Party is marbled with this anti-Semitism. But this young couple in the prime of their life, it looked as if they were going to get engaged just next week. It's heartbreaking. Again, this from the Embassy of Israel to the U.S., they tweeted, Yaron and Sarah were our friends and colleagues. They were in the prime of their lives. This evening, a terrorist shot and killed them as they exited an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in D.C. The entire embassy staff is heartbroken and devastated by their murder. No words can express the depth of our grief and horror at this devastating loss. Our hearts are with the families, and the embassies will be by their side during this terrible time. Buying that engagement ring to propose next week. President Trump, writing on Truth Social late last night, these horrible DC killings, based obviously on anti-Semitism, must end now. Hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA. Condolences to the families of the victims. So sad that such a thing as this can happen. God bless you all. Now, on CNN, Laura Coates Live, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, said, "We are waiting to receive more information from the authorities, but we have seen what happened in the last few weeks. We have seen the incitement on campuses. We have seen the incitement in many places, and unfortunately today we faced a horrible terror attack against innocent people. I'm sure that the authorities will make sure they will find out exactly who is behind it, but I think the more important issue is also to address the incitement. When people are spreading lies, blaming us for genocide, calling for intifada, and armed revolt against Israel, that is the consequences that we saw tonight. I think we'll have to go and look deeper about the incitement that we have seen in the last few weeks. And we've seen this incitement on college campuses where the Columbia University president was booed and hissed at during the commencement speech as she defended ex-student Mohammed Khalil. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm running late. We'll talk just quickly on that. Then we do have to get to the South African president. We're also going to talk about that jet from Qatar. Your thoughts on that? Big news coming out of New York with a recent poll about the gubernatorial race. A couple things about Cuomo. We have so many guests this morning, and we have a lot to get to. So stay with us. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A comment from a viewer. The article about the lady that ripped off the Corning Painted Post School District. Isn't it ironic it came out just after the budget got shut down, trying to make us feel sorry for the district? I bet they knew of this a while ago. I also think it would have had bad implications if it was released beforehand, because I think a lot of people would say, how does this, kind of going back to the Doge idea, how does the waste, fraud, and corruption fester? Okay, I got to go through this quickly. Columbia University president defends ex-student Mohammed Khalil in the commencement, sparking graduates' anger. We firmly believe that our international students have the same rights to freedom of speech as everyone else, and they should not be targeted by the government for exercising their rights, said acting Columbia University President Claire Shipman. The crowd was about 37,000 strong. I know many in our community are mourning the absence of our graduate Mohammed Khalil. I don't think you confront this head on, but Columbia again showing that they're telling the Trump administration one thing and really stand for something quite different. Some students at the ceremony felt that Shipman's shout out to the former grad student who helped organize on-campus protests where pro-Hamas literature was handed out was inappropriate. Mourning? Is he dead? One undergrad said. What about the hostages who are dead? We should be mourning them. Great point. I don't think a day like this, she should mention that. I would agree. I think the crowd was surprised. There was a moment of stunned silence. It's kind of mourning someone who is not dead. He is also graduated. He's not a student anymore. It's strange that she'd mention it. I think, and she did receive boos and etc. I do believe it was to send a message to faculty specifically, but also to some students that don't worry when we're telling Trump. We're still very much in support of these anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protests. Now, anti-Israel protesters sparked chaos outside Columbia University's graduation yesterday with, and I still will never understand this, a diploma burning ceremony and aggressive chants, such chants as Free Palestine, the same chant we heard from the alleged murderer of those two young ambassadors, staffers I should say, who were fatally shot. That gunman yelling the same chants. Interesting. Going back to the Israeli ambassador saying the incitement is getting too much. I will never understand the burning of your diploma, though I'm sure there's ways that you can get copies of that diploma. But if you're that family member, that parent who helped pay for that education, and you see that diploma go up in flames just for a quick photo op, guessing you're not that happy. Cops were called to the scene to maintain order, but the NYPD could not immediately say who summoned them to the campus. The group, Columbia University Apartheid Divest Group, tweeted before the graduation, "Wear a mask, get loud, bring noise, no commencement as usual under genocide." So there we go, again, wearing a mask in these, not even demonstrations, it's chaos. They know exactly what they're doing. A number of students in the section designated for graduates from Columbia's sister school, Barnard, wore headscarves during the ceremony and were among the loudest voices shouting down Shipman's remarks, who I mentioned. People yelling, "Free Muhammad Khalil." And yet, the acting Columbia president giving in to these agitators, mentioning him, supporting him in that speech. All right, there we go. That's just a quick update because of that tragic shooting. Our thoughts and prayers go out to their families and friends. A whole life ahead of them. About to get engaged next week. Shot outside of that meeting for at the Capitol Jewish Museum. Israeli embassy staffers Yaron Lerinsky and Sarah Milgram fatally shot. Okay, the big story of the Trump news cycle yesterday was the South African president visiting the White House. We're going to talk about that, tie it in with the plane from Qatar, those two big stories. We also have some local issues. We're going to hear from Alisa Troccia a little bit later on in this hour. Keep your comments coming in, keep your waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. So President Trump confronted the South African president on Wednesday with claims that the country's black majority government is carrying out a genocide of white farmers, ordering the Oval Office's lights dimmed to show an inflammatory video detailing purported evidence of crimes against humanity. CNN, and specifically Stephen Collinson, is saying that world leaders have a huge new problem: Trump's Oval Office smackdowns. And I'm not going to go into all the specifics of what he had to say, but he compared them to WWE cage matches. Trump's dressing downs are a metaphor for a U.S. foreign policy that is, quote, erratic, politicized, and awash in conspiracy theories. As Ukraine and Jordan also found out, the more vulnerable a country, the more hostile a reception they tend to get. Given the growing political risk of appearing in the Oval Office, it would not be surprising if some leaders reconsider what was once a coveted invitation but is now a political trap. This could have diplomatic consequences, with global South nations like South Africa now looking more to China than the U.S. Now, Ramaphosa, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, knew what was coming. He was joined by his white agricultural minister in the new multiracial coalition government. Trump's friends, the South African major champion golfers Ernie Els and Retief Goosen, were also drafted in. But that didn't stop Trump dimming the lights and showing what CNN is calling right-wing propaganda about South Africa. So now he's suggesting that Zelensky overshadows every meeting, that it's always reminiscent of Zelensky, that is the trend. Then he asked the question, which leaders best handled Trump in the Oval Office? The media's coverage never ends. But the visit everyone wants to see is how a meeting between Trump and Pope Leo the 14th will go. Now, Nicole Wallace on MSNBC's Deadline said another day for the history books today for Donald J. Trump. An astonishing display from him in the White House today. Donald Trump meeting with the president of South Africa and attempting to ambush and humiliate that leader inside the Oval Office. But what he did instead was embarrass and humiliate the people of the United States of America again in his meeting with President Ramaphosa. Trump peddled unsubstantiated claims of genocide in South Africa of white South Africans, a group that ruled during apartheid in South Africa. It is a fringe conspiracy theory pushed by the likes of Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, and David Duke, the former Grand Wizard of the KKK. Have you ever noticed that the only people that give David Duke a soapbox is the mainstream media? Have you ever seen him anywhere quoted or videos or anything other than when the media highlight him? I find that such a strange one. I don't understand that, but lumping those people all together, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, and David Duke. It's good to see MSNBC's staying on point. In the Oval Office, Trump said we take from many, many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on. And we had a lot of people. I must tell you, Mr. President, we've had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers and they're fleeing South Africa. And it's a very sad thing to see. But I hope we can have an explanation of that. It will be the end of the country if it's not fixed. Wallace then said, there you have it, conspiracy theory peddling leader of the United States of America, sitting inside a gilded Oval Office again, tarnishing America's image around the world. Now, on Fox News, with an interview with Joel Pollak. Joel Pollak is the Breitbart News senior editor at large. This was during, what was the Fox show? It doesn't say here. It was with Martha McCallum. Shortly after the meeting between the two heads of state, Pollak praised Trump for forcing a conversation about the progress of South Africa that has made or hasn't made. What kind of progress they have made or haven't made, which he referred to as the most important thing to happen to South Africa since apartheid ended 31 years ago. So this conversation, according to Mr. Pollak, is the most important thing to happen to South Africa since apartheid ended 31 years ago. When McCallum asked whether Trump's assertion that white South Africans are facing a race-based genocide is true, Pollak explained how the crime and tension in the country is amounting to a situation that will lend itself to genocide. Quote, South Africa has extremely high levels of violent crime that are growing worse, and that crime affects both black and white South Africans, as Joanne Rupert, one of the South African businessmen in the room, pointed out. But there's also the separate issue of the targeting of white South Africans, especially farmers. And many South Africans believe that it is a deliberate act to target those farmers. And they hear the rhetoric of Julius Malema, who Trump put on the video. By the way, in reaction to the meeting, Julian Malema posted statements in which he stood by his position and his party reiterated the chant, kill the farmer. You have a situation that will lend itself to genocide because this kind of incendiary rhetoric is being used to justify those farm killings. And that's what Trump is pointing out. Okay, in that meeting also, it was asked about the Qatar jet yesterday. Ooh, we got a lot of comments and waves coming. Thank you. The United States has accepted, and the reason I will tie these in with a better segue in just a second, but the United States has accepted a 747 jetliner as a gift from Qatar. Now it is going to need to be upgraded. The media is presenting it as it's got to be taken down to essentially the studs for security reasons, and that could cost $1 billion. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth accepted the $400 million Boeing-made jet and has tasked the Air Force to figure out how to quickly upgrade it for use as Trump's official plane, according to the New York Times. Legal experts have questioned the scope of laws relating to gifts from foreign governments that aim to thwart corruption and improper influence. Democrats have also sought to block the handover. We know Chuck Schumer had put forth a bill that would not allow planes to be gifted or something. Qatar has dismissed concerns about the aircraft deal, and Trump has also shrugged it off, saying it would be stupid not to accept it. So this has been reported. This was breaking yesterday. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said he accepted the 747 in accordance with all federal rules and regulations. The Department of Defense will work to ensure proper security measures and functional mission requirements are considered for an aircraft used to transport the president of the United States. The Qatar Prime Minister insisted that the gift is normal between friends like he and Trump. Our intention is to have a very clear exchange that the U.S. is in need for to accelerate a temporary Air Force One. A lot of nations have gifted to the U.S. many things, he added before making a joke about the Statue of Liberty, which, by the way, was a joke that a viewer made early on, saying, are we going to need to return the Statue of Liberty? White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt said Monday that the jet is simply a donation to America. She added the Qatar's royal family has offered to donate this plane to the United States Air Force, where that donation will be accepted according to all legal and ethical obligations. President Trump sees no problem with his administration accepting the $400 million gift as it is free of charge. He lashed out. I know I got to take a break, and we got Alisa coming up in just a moment. But President Trump berated NBC News reporter Peter Alexander, calling him an idiot and a jerk when asked about the jet. Why are you talking about that? What are you asking for? You know, you ought to get out of here, he said. What does this have to do with the Qatar jet? They're giving the United States, because this was at the kind of the Oval Office meeting, the press part of it, with the South African president, calling Peter Alexander a jerk and an idiot. Big story when we come back. Well, when we come back, we're going to hear from Alisa Troccia about Miss Colonial Days, which is coming up on the 12th, but they're looking for contestants, and they're asking the contestants sign up before June 1st. So if you know anybody that would like to join, you can find out more after the next break. But big news, Trump's big, beautiful bill has cleared the final committee hurdle before the House floor vote. So bleary-eyed House Republicans advanced the one... Blurry-eyed, wouldn't it be blurry? Blurry-eyed House Republicans advanced the One Big Beautiful Bill Act past the Rules Committee after a marathon hearing on Wednesday. In an 8-4 vote shortly before 11 p.m., the colossal legislation cleared the GOP-led committee along party lines. Very interesting now, though, because it's dangerous. It's a dangerous time for a big, beautiful, and expensive bill, says CNN. No one had a problem with the bipartisan infrastructure bill that cost so much, or the budgets under the Biden administration, but now is a time where we're supposed to focus on every penny. It's interesting how that works. But we got to take a break. We'll read your comments when we come back after Alisa's interview. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program. Steuben County Office for the Aging, committed to maximizing quality of life, safety, and independence. Joining us in the studio, look who's back, Alisa. You are like the star of Frankly Speaking. You've been on, what, you had the exchange students?
Yes.
And now, oh no, that's coming up, and now you have the excitement of Colonial Days.
Yay, the Miss Colonial Days pageant.
Yes, that's coming up right around the corner. Now, what year is it? Second year?
So this is our second revamped year back in action. Yes.
How did it go last year?
Last year, it went so well. We had a huge turnout. We had a ton of contestants. It was really successful. The queens were amazing. They did some things throughout the year to support the community and the organization. So yeah, we're excited to build it back up to what it used to be.
And do they come back, like the queens, do they come back this year to say hi?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What is your responsibility if you win Miss Colonial Days, the pageant? What is your responsibility as the winner?
So we have 5 different queens, but Miss Colonial Queens, they're all pretty much the same responsibilities, but they represent the organization throughout the calendar year.
Okay.
So we look to them to basically be out and about in the community, presenting themselves well. We have different activities throughout the year that they have to participate in. So they are a representation of the brand.
And how are the categories broken? Like, it's not every age group is going for Miss Colonial Days.
Right. So we break it down in different age groups. So we have our littles up to the bigs. So we have girls ages 4 through 18 that can compete.
Okay, and you must reside at least in the Painted Post area, right?
So it used to just be Painted Post for the Colonial Days pageant, but last year we decided to open it up because there's so many people in this area and other schools and kids that don't get to be a part of anything like this, and there's no other pageant around similar to Miss Colonial Days pageant or what it used to be and what we're getting it back to.
Right.
So it's Painted Post and surrounding areas. So Horseheads, Big Flats, Elmira, Painted Post, Gang Mills, Corning.
Now, where is this located specifically? Because I know it used to be in the park. Last year you were in right by
Sit-and Bowl parking lot.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
So we're going to be in that same area, but this year we're actually going to be, it's going to be held in the pavilion.
Okay.
So.
Now, what are your responsibilities at the event?
So I am coordinating everything, basically. Okay. So I work with the contestants, helping them get registered, and then I put everything together from A to Z. Like I'm ordering the crowns and getting the sashes made, and I work with the queens after for the year, like coordinating events, so everything.
What does a contestant need to know?
Going into it or to register?
Well, both. Yeah.
Okay. So registration, or in order to register, it's really just filling out a form. Okay. Most of them need the help of their parents. And they just ask some questions. How old are you? Where do you go to school? Some of your favorite things, getting to know you a little bit. They do have to submit a photo. They have to be a female between the age of 4 and 18. And that's pretty much it. And then, of course, live in those areas. And then the day of, so we will have a rehearsal the night before the pageant. The pageant is Thursday, June 12th. So we'll have a rehearsal on Wednesday that all of the contestants have to be present for. Okay. We do a run through. We kind of map out what it's going to look like. And then the pageant is Thursday at 6 p.m. So I'll ask the contestants to show up a little bit early so that they're ready and prepared. And then we do the pageant, and then we take pictures afterwards. Yeah. And then Friday's a free day for them. And then Saturday is the Colonial Days pageant, parade that we expect all of the winners, our queens, to be available for. They ride in cars that are donated from some of the local dealerships. And then I believe this year we're going to have a float where the other contestants, if they want to participate, can ride in the parade.
And that's when they get to show off their crown and the sash.
Yes, the whole thing, wear their dresses again.
And so Thursday, June 12th at 6 p.m., that almost kicks off the Colonial Days festivities, doesn't it?
Yeah. There is a lot of things happening this year. I know that they're doing the vendors again I don't know if they decided on 1 or 2 days for that. I have to double check on that. But yeah, there's bands, there's vendors, there's the parade. And
it's just a great community event.
It is.
Surround our area. So are you the MC?
I am the MC of the pageant itself, yes. Okay. We will have different judges. I am not a judge. We have somebody that tabulates the scores. So I have a lot of volunteers to put into place. And then Miss Colonial Days, she has a few different things that additional things that she has to do for her registration. She actually has to write a short essay. Oh, okay. She can choose the topic, but she has to write an essay, and then she does meet with the judges prior for like a little interview before the pageant.
Are you still in need of volunteers?
I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if somebody's looking to be involved, I have all the judges in place, but I do need help the day of with the pageant and giving out gifts and making sure the girls are lined up, getting them on and off the stage. So if somebody's interested, they can reach out to me.
What should parents know if their kid is thinking about getting involved in Miss Colonial Days?
So the parents need to be transportation for the kids, of course, to and from the activities from Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Saturday. So not only providing transportation, but making sure they're not unattended as well, because I'm not there to be responsible for the children. So making sure that somebody is there for that. But that's pretty much it. Now, they don't have multiple changes. It's just they wear dresses. Okay. And, they can decide on hair and makeup, whether they do it themselves, how much, if they get it done. Okay. And there's a lot of options for where they can go for shopping for dresses.
So, and you had mentioned doling out gifts to volunteers. What do you get if you're in the Colonial Days pageant if you win?
If you win, you get the title, of course. You get a sash and a crown, and there are some prizes. We get donations from local businesses for the winners. Also, the contestants get a little goodie bag as well. So everybody that participates walks away with something.
So if someone either wants to enter the Miss Colonial Days pageant, again, Thursday, June 12th at 6 p.m., though there is a run-through the night before, but the event itself is on Thursday the 12th. What can people do to help, if they want to volunteer, enter, just participate in general?
Yeah, so we've got a Facebook page, Colonial Days Pageant. If they go to that, all the information's on there. They can reach out to me by phone or by email asking any questions. The registration form to register a contestant is on there. It's really easy to fill out. There is a $35 registration fee for all contestants. I forgot to mention that. And they do, like I said, have to upload a photo and fill out that form completely. But if they are interested in being a volunteer or participating in some other way, or perhaps you're a local business and you want to do donations. I know like Rita's Italian Ice gave me gift certificates for all of the contestants last year. That was really nice.
Wonderful.
And some other local businesses. Reach out as well, because we're accepting donations for that also.
And if you want to register for the pageant itself, deadline is June 2nd, right?
Yes, it's fast approaching.
Yeah.
This kind of snuck up on all of us.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Colonial
whoa.
Days always does, because it's kind of almost a kickoff to the summer in a way. And you always forget that, oh my goodness, summer's almost here. Okay, so before we go, just go to the Facebook. That's what you'd recommend?
I do, because all the information is on there along with my contact information.
And hopefully this is a tradition that continues.
Yay!
Yay. Thanks for doing this show, and we'll talk to you next year for the 2026 Miss Colonial Days.
All right. Thank you, Frank.
All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you to Alisa Troccia for being our guest to talk about Miss Colonial Days. Don't miss out on the opportunity. If you know someone from the ages 4 to 18 that would like to join, there's all the information on the screen. You can contact me as well, and I can get you that information. So a very big story. Oh, no, let's go to viewer comments. What am I thinking? Comment from Ken. Ken writes in, these anti-Semitic violent demonstrators and attacks won't stop until there are penalties levied against the protesters that are more than a slap on the hands. I would agree, Ken. As a matter of fact, it's not even a penalty in most instances. If you look at it, even in that speech, at that commencement speech, there is encouragement of it by the supposed grown-ups in the room, the faculty, the staff, the professors, the deans, but also when it comes to those on the ground, not just on college campuses. There is this, to quote the Israeli ambassador to the UN, the incitement by politicians, by leaders, supposed leaders. So yes, I don't see it dying down anytime soon. And with that tragedy late last night with the 2 embassy workers, young, at the prime of their life, about to get engaged just next week in Jerusalem, being shot down in cold blood by an attacker yelling, "Free Palestine," the same chants that we heard at Columbia University during the diploma burning ceremony for the pro-Hamas anti-Semitic protest. So I agree, Ken. Comment from a different viewer. Mark writes in, the bottom line is don't meet with Trump. You will get your butt handed to you. I think that's what Stephen Collinson said could be a problem for diplomatic reasons. Comment from a different viewer. We are told we need to show sympathy for Biden having cancer by people who celebrated when Trump was shot. That's a very interesting point, a very, what's the word I want to look, forceful point. We did see some of that, unfortunately, some of that celebration, and it was sick. So I would agree. There is some updates on that. I don't think we're going to have time to get to it because we do have Sheriff Allard, so get those questions in. But Sheriff Allard will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. So yesterday, again, Trump's big, beautiful bill clears the final committee before the House floor vote. The panel convened at 1 a.m. to consider the measure due to requirements that Democrats get 2 days to file minority views. A manager's amendment making last-minute tweaks to the mammoth bill, including a provision cementing a deal to increase the SALT deductions, the state and local tax cap, by 400%, was unveiled to the committee after more than 20 hours of debate. So it looks like Lawler and some other New York representatives won that battle. Now, originally it was at, I think it was 30,000. Now I want to say it's at 40,000. More than 500 amendments introduced by Democrats were rejected over the course of the punishingly drawn-out hearing. Again, it did pass 8-4 before 11 p.m., but the panel convened at 1 a.m. this morning. Speaker Johnson had been hoping to push the mega bill through the House by Memorial Day before the lower chamber breaks for a 1-week recess next week, but is still grappling with multiple holdouts and a razor-thin margin. I think he can only lose, 3 votes. The Rules Committee approval means that the legislative bundle only needs a simple majority to clear the House rather than 2/3 majority if leadership were forced to bypass the gatekeeping committee. Still, Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes at most if there's full attendance, given their 220 to 212 majority. So just lose 3 votes. This is going to be daunting, but luckily it will now bypass the filibuster and that 60 vote to end the filibuster. Several senators, such as Josh Hawley and Ron Johnson, have voiced opposition to the measure in its current form. Republicans have a 53 to 47 seat majority in the Senate. So this is far from over, but a step in the right direction. Though Matt Egan from CNN suggests it's a dangerous time for a big, beautiful, and expensive bill. Again, I would have loved to see an article like this written about the bipartisan infrastructure bill or many of the outrageous spending bills that Biden forced through. Today, America's mountain of debt is casting a shadow over Washington's financial capabilities. So all of a sudden, they have this real big issue with debt. Why? Because in this case, it's about tax cuts. They see all your money as their money. We should just be lucky we get to keep what we're allowed to keep. That's the mindset of the left. So that's why you're going to hear the scare tactics. And I had a viewer that I didn't get a chance to comment that mentioned last night or maybe early this morning. That's why they always go for the scare tactics of Republicans are going to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Folks, first of all, yes, they are going to root out waste, fraud, and corruption when it comes to Medicaid. But having said that, keep in mind, this is a scare tactic they've used forever. And I think it's sickening that the media preys on elderly, on our senior citizens, and that's exactly what they're doing, trying to scare you that there's going to be Social Security cuts. Let me ask, though, and be honest, even if you are not a Trump supporter, what politician, not even Trump, I'm saying the House and the Senate, is going to support something that hurts so many people? Let's face it, at the end of the day, many of these politicians only care about getting reelected, right? That's Democrat and Republican. So they're going to sign their name to something that's going to hurt the elderly population, a population that votes in droves. It's just at the political face value, makes absolutely no sense. But for the media and certain politicians to prey on the senior citizens, to scare them just for political reasons, I think personally is sick. Now, having said that, oh man, there's going to be so many things we're going to miss. Okay, we've got some New York State issues I'm going to get to when we come back. One thing, quickly, Donald Trump Jr. teased yesterday about a future White House run. A lot of people have hoped that he would run for governor here in New York, and boy, do we have an update on the governor's race. He teased a future run for presidency during an appearance at the Qatar Economic Forum, saying that calling is there. When asked if he would consider picking up the reins and run for office, here we go. Well, oh boy. Well, it's an honor to be asked, Trump Jr. said. You never know. You know, right now this has been my focus. The answer is, I don't know, maybe one day. That calling is there. I'll always be very active in terms of being a vocal proponent of these things. I think my father has truly changed, the Republican Party. I think it's the America First Party now, the MAGA Party, however you want to look at it. All right, we got to take a break, wrap up hour number one. Where does the time go on this program? We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by our friends at Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back. Wrapping up our number one. When we come back, before we hear from the Sheriff Jim Allard, I've got a couple of New York updates. We're going to hear from our friend Joe Sempolinski, who will also be on the program tomorrow. I know Joe is a fan favorite, so yeah, another thing I want to mention too. But I can't promo everything. But tomorrow he'll be on the program, so get your questions in. We have a huge update on the governor's race that we'll get to pretty much as soon as we kick off the next hour. So stay with us. I know this segment was really quick, running late. Thanks again to Alisa Troccia for being on the program this morning. She's going to join us again next week with some very special guests to talk about foreign exchange students. We all got to watch Sylvia grow up on this program as she was here with Alisa last year. Well, we have a couple special guests on the program next week. We're going to have a busy show next week. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking and hour number two after this. Hour number two of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Coming up in a little bit, we're going to be talking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Comment from a viewer. Mark writes in, the media or fake news didn't cut down Biden when he forgave the debt of student loans with our money. So why are they cutting down everything Trump does? It's ridiculous. You're right. That's why, again, the media has no credibility. We saw the lack of coverage for 4 years of the Biden administration, and that has come full spotlight when this new book by Jake Tapper and many in the media losing even more credibility as people realize, wait a minute, you're covering this now and not after the last 4 years. Jake Tapper having to admit that he didn't try hard enough to report on it. I mean, it's all a joke. Joe Scarborough saying, well, I never saw it in person. Well, you saw the videos, Joe. And Jake Tapper admitting that whatever the White House told them at the time was essentially gospel truth. So they said it was fine, so there's no sense doing your due diligence and doing research on it. But I agree with you. Thanks, Mark. Did you see the exchange between Adam Schiff and Lee Zeldin? By the way, if you get a chance, we're not going to have time to talk about all of it, but it was pretty heated. Lee Zeldin not taking any grief. Okay, so tomorrow, Joe Sempolinski is going to be on the program, and we'll ask him about this. But he released a statement yesterday criticizing members of the Assembly Democrat majority for quashing bills in a committee this week, including a bill to let schools opt out of New York's looming electric bus mandate and a bill drafted to help schools buy produce and products from local farms for school meals. These two things stopped by the Democrats. Quote, the zero-emission EV bus mandate is an unworkable, unfunded $20 billion mandate being forced down the throats of local school districts by Albany, said Assemblyman Sempolinski. I co-sponsored a bill that would give school districts an opportunity to opt out of the zero-emission bus mandate, but it was killed in committee by members of the Democrat supermajority. Another education bill that was quashed, A7590, would have incentivized schools to buy products for school meals from New York State farmers, growers, producers, and processors. Why would that be quashed? Why would that be stopped by the Democrats in Albany? Number one, this is a prime example of the one-party rule and why that is so disastrous for our state. But keep that in mind when they talk about farmers and they talk about caring for farmers. This is what Assemblyman Sempolinski had to say. This is another common sense bill that would be a win-win for our school children and local farmers. It was killed even though we all recognize the benefits of fresh, healthy, nutritious school meals. Proposals offering college tuition for members of the Reserve Armed Forces and a loan program designed to encourage young graduated professionals in New York to become homeowners without falling into debt were also blocked. Quote, voters are clamoring for bipartisan solutions to address the issues facing New York's families, especially our skyrocketing taxes and cost of living. To help all struggling New Yorkers, the Assembly Republican Conference has reached out to our colleagues in the Democrat majority and offered tangible solutions to those issues, only to have them rejected again and again. So we thank Assemblyman Sempolinski for bringing that to our attention, and we will, as a matter of fact, I'm going to restaple this, and we're going to talk to him about that tomorrow, and I'll put it in my stack of papers. Okay, here we go. This is the big news, I think, very big news, coming out of the New York Post. Upstate Republican Representative Alisa Stefanik, as of today, is running neck and neck in a hypothetical race for governor against incumbent Kathy Hochul. The incumbent governor, up for re-election next year, would have the support of 43% of New Yorkers, with Stefanik pulling 42%, as about 15% of the electorate is still undecided. Now, with Stefanik, she has a name recognition. She's great at fundraising. In a potential Republican primary, Stefanik has a dominant edge with 56% of voters. Mike Lawler receiving only 9%, and Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman with an 8% in the poll. Hochul had only a 30% approval rating among the 1,163 likely voters, while 57% disapprove of the job that she's doing. We know that she does not do a good job when it comes to communicating. It's not that she's not for lack of trying. She just is not a good messenger. And her policies are disastrous. I should add that in most instances. And Elise Stefanik can deliver a message. I'd say go back to watch the hearings that she had. This is why she would have been so effective as ambassador to the UN. See how effective she was in that hearing on anti-Semitism at college campuses, or that hearing against Governor Cuomo that is now having the DOJ is now investigating for potential perjury. But again, this is very, very big news. I hope this encourages Elise Stefanik to announce one way or the other whether she plans on running or not, because we need to get ahead of this. We're already almost 2 months late from when Lee Zeldin declared last time. Now, again, keep in mind the election is next November, not this November, but we need as much time as possible as Republicans to campaign, because it's very tough. Now, Elise Stefanik will have the upper hand on this, but it's very tough to get media coverage for the Republican. It's very tough to get the message out there. I think Elise Stefanik, because of her name recognition and popularity amongst Republicans and being a Trump supporter, will get the coverage begrudgingly by the news media, who will want to do the gotcha, but you don't gotcha Elise Stefanik. So I think she has a lot of upside, and I can't see the downside at this point. So again, if you are just joining us, a new poll released shows that Elise Stefanik is running neck and neck with Kathy Hochul. Kathy Hochul, huge disapproval ratings. We know that. Should not come as a surprise. The poll found only 23% of respondents believe that Hochul deserves re-election. 23%. 63% preferred somebody new. The pollster, Ryan Munt, said Hochul's re-elect score further highlights her inherent vulnerability. It would be, well, again, she would have the support of Trump. It'll be very interesting. But I thought that was good news to share with you early this morning, that Elise Stefanik running neck and neck with Kathy Hochul, and that's before she's even declared. Also on the New York front, Governor Cuomo is already touting the Trump DOJ probe as an advantage in his mayoral race with a new ad campaign. If Donald Trump doesn't want Andrew Cuomo as mayor, you do, is the ad campaign. So he's trying to capitalize on this. Both sides are trying to capitalize on it. Not just Cuomo, but also his opponents. Cuomo is trying to use news of federal investigation into him as a political opportunity. His rivals are doing the same, according to Politico. Governor Hochul weighing in on the DOJ probe. When asked if Kathy Hochul thought federal investigations into several prominent New Yorkers are political, she said, well, we're going to paraphrase here because there's kids watching before they go to school. Heck yeah. The Justice Department on Tuesday opened that criminal probe. Hochul said the question is, when will Pam Bondi stop politicizing the Department of Justice and just do their jobs? Ironic, coming after 4 years of judicial weaponization against the now President Donald J. Trump. Now there is a concern about politicalization, supposedly. So she thinks that the DOJ should stop targeting New York Democrats. Well, maybe the New York Democrats should stop doing things that the DOJ has to look into. How about that? Daily News calls it a phony probe into Cuomo. Investigation into Cuomo continues justice politicalization. I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, this boils down to, as an opinion piece that the Post calls it, a day of reckoning for Cuomo. And that decision that he made, and then the subsequent cover-up of the disastrous nursing home decision that put COVID-positive patients into nursing homes amongst our most vulnerable, leading to untold amount of deaths. And I say untold because those numbers were covered up by Cuomo because he realized the political fallout that could come from this. So he covered it up, and then has never once been apologetic. Never once apologized to the families that lost loved ones because of that decision. And he is arrogant and condescending when it is mentioned. He's so arrogant and condescending that before this probe, he was actually running on his COVID record. Again, this is for mayor. Running on his COVID record. That is how arrogant he is. But Vivian Zayas and Tracy Olivino said for years, the cries of grieving families have echoed in the halls of power, dismissed, deflected, and ignored. Now, with the Department of Justice finally opening a criminal investigation into Governor Andrew Cuomo, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, for allegedly lying to Congress about his administration's role in New York's nursing home COVID deaths, we have our first real glimmer of hope. This is a moment of reckoning, and it's long, long overdue. More than 15,000 seniors perished in New York's nursing homes after Cuomo's infamous March 2020 edict. The result was as deadly as it was predictable. But what followed was arguably even worse, a calculated cover-up. Cuomo and his inner circle allegedly doctored a state health department report in July of 2020 to conceal the true death toll, while families buried loved ones, but not able to see them in their final moments. Cuomo polished his image, published a book, and collected accolades, including an Emmy built on fiction. This wasn't just a policy failure, it was a betrayal. And for over 5 years, grieving families like ours were gaslit and told to move on. That's why Voices for Seniors was formed, and that's that group we mentioned yesterday on the program. We represent over 15,000 families demanding that we were never given answers, transparency, and justice. We spent 5 years fighting for the truth while Cuomo played politics with our pain. And now some are acting shocked that the DOJ is investigating him. Please, of course Cuomo lied. The criminal investigation is not just only justified, it's necessary. He knowingly misled Congress by downplaying his administration's role in obscuring the true number of nursing home deaths, all to protect his political ambitions. This isn't speculation, it's the reason federal prosecutors are now involved. The investigation exists because of facts, not political vendettas, demand accountability. So there we are. But the cover-up must end. And the silence, that ended the moment we stood up and said, enough. We got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program. Steuben County Office for the Aging, committed to maximizing quality of life, safety, and independence. And joining us in the Hesselson studio, Sheriff Allard. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County.
It always is. We got a couple comments. This is unrelated to you, so I don't want to throw you off. This is before you got in, but I got to read them. I hope the gun owners get together and vote Hochul out if they don't want to lose their guns. And Elise Stefanik better get in the race soon if she wants to be Hochul. Did you see that poll this morning? Oh, no. That heat.
Really?
Yeah. And she hasn't even declared.
I see she's been releasing statements.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I love how Trump endorsed Lawler for Congress.
Yes.
You know, that was a clear message.
That sends a message, yeah.
Another comment, I'm just wondering what happened to the no tax on Social Security. Suddenly, unless I missed something, that's off the table. Oh, I got you off the camera almost. Off the table, not mentioned again, seniors lose again. No, it's not off the table. They have to do it in a different way. It's not completely like the no tax on tips. It's because of, but that is still in the works. Don't worry. 6 Democrats have died in office over a few months. Yeah, that was interesting. Have you seen that? 6 Democrats have died in office this year.
Oh my.
There's a very big piece if you get a chance at the New York Post on it this morning. Okay, morning. Well, good morning. Just wondering, did any other governor put COVID-infected patients in nursing homes? Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I've heard of.
No, I think Cuomo would be running on that, to be honest.
And there was a lot of investigations, local investigations during COVID due to that.
Mm-hmm. And, he actually has the audacity to run as mayor on his COVID record. Legacy. Yeah, right?
Well, the one he manufactured.
Yeah, exactly. That book. Yeah. Mark writes, I wonder how many innocent people were 86th by Cuomo during COVID, not the fake or covered up version. Well, at least 15,000 is what that one group reports on. So, hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Comments are over. Sorry about that. No, I don't ever apologize for the comments. The comments are great.
They're good.
Okay, but it's unrelated to our interview. So I wanted to mention, because what a moving event every year, the 10th Annual Law Enforcement Memorial Service. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years.
It does. And you've been around for most of them. And every year we try to add something new to the Memorial Park and into what we do. And I see Nick Clark's dad there every year.
Yep.
And that's heartwarming, because I was there that morning when Nick was murdered, and all that we've gone through since that time and the changes we made, and it's just as I look through the list of folks that have died, and I look at it always goes through my mind the number of funerals I've been to,
Oh, sure.
line of duty funerals, and
It's a tough. I mean, it's a tough memorial. I mean, it's tough to get through.
it is. It is.
Especially, I mean, I've said this a million times. Taps. I hope no one looks at me during taps. That's the toughest
Taps
part.
and then Amazing Grace on the pipes.
On the bagpipes. It's so
yeah.
moving. And how great was that young singer?
She was amazing.
How do you get these young singers that don't have any nerves whatsoever?
I know, she popped right up.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom.
And away she went.
Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
nailed it.
Wonderful
She was so
job.
good.
So I want to start on that note. Now we get into the kind of the nitty gritty, if you will. And I think you know what that is. Is there any update on the appeal?
I got notified by my attorney this past week that the county filed yet again, filed for a 30-day extension
Okay.
of their ability to appeal,
Okay.
which I guess they're kind of guaranteed in the law, according to my attorney.
How many times can they do it, I wonder?
Just once.
Just once, okay.
Well, they can apply more than once, but
gotcha.
they're kind of guaranteed once.
Okay.
Then, it kind of begs the question of why?
Why?
Because you're wasting more taxpayer money just to file, because that was another attorney document that had to be created.
Great
and filed.
point. Yeah.
And what's your plan? What are you looking at?
Yeah.
And why are you waiting another 30 days?
Yeah. How have you not made a decision yet? If this is a good
Correct.
decision, wouldn't you jump
Right.
on it right away?
Would have already jumped on it
Yeah.
if they thought they had an opportunity.
Have we heard any comments from them?
No, nothing.
So
Absolutely
everything
nothing.
is kind of done in secrecy. We just have another extension.
Once again.
What does it feel like for you personally to just almost like keep toying with you with a 30 day? Because this is 30 more days where it's on your mind.
Right, and it's just another. To me, it's another example of the county trying to exert some sort of control or what.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but it's sad because this costs the taxpayers money every time they do this, and as we look at this, why this is the most disturbing thing to me. Over the past several years, I've seen this increase, is the amount of things that are done in secret behind closed doors. And at times I think it feels like the administration of the county, their default is to do things in secrecy rather than transparently,
Right.
which they're required to do. And
They were exonerated by the judge
yes,
about the secrecy. Don't you think you'd
yes.
err on the side of caution at this point?
well, and it feels like, in whether it's true or not, it feels like they're doing things behind closed doors because they know they're wrong.
Yeah.
And when you're doing things are wrong, you don't want people to see.
You don't want it on record.
And I think for a long time, up until I finally said no, they got away with that. They would do things they knew they shouldn't do,
Right.
and nobody challenged it. When you look at the two extensions of the term limits, which were set by public referendum,
Yes.
they
Great point.
said, we don't think we have to go back to public referendum because we didn't think it needed it in the first place. Well, it doesn't matter. Parity of legislation tells you if it's set by referendum, you can't change it without referendum. And if you look at the county charter, it says right in the county charter that the current administration helped write that you can't change the terms of an elected official without going to public referendum.
Right.
So what are we doing here? But nobody challenged it, so it became law.
And no one, and there a couple things on this. The problem is there's no coverage because they are secret. And
Right.
in the media, and this is not a knock on anybody in the media, it's just that if you don't get a press release, you're not,
Right.
the days of investigative journalism are
Right.
probably
Are
long
gone.
gone.
Yeah.
So if they can stay silent, you're not going to see I bet you, other than this program, I don't know if anybody's reported on the appeal, the 30 day.
Right.
And that's not a knock on anybody, but
No.
it's just, so it's, everything is done in secrecy, and that's
Yes.
plays in their favor in this.
And I, this past legislative meeting, there was a resolution to change the administrative code. But when you click on the link, it doesn't tell you what the changes are.
Yeah.
It just has a copy of the administrative code. And so what are the changes?
Yeah.
A, so that we can follow them.
Right.
But also B, what prompted the changes? What are they? And the last time they wanted to change things, I sent them a letter from the Sheriff's Association saying, hey, you can't do what you want to do. So now we don't publish what the changes are.
Okay. All right. Following along at home. One quick question. This is inside baseball. Do you think the term limits will be changed again in 2 years? We'll move on from that question.
I think there'll be a challenge if they try to.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way.
Just a certain date coming up in 2 years. Do you have like one of those debt ceiling clocks in your office that shows how much the county's wasting?
So, as you well know, my wife foils all of these. And that's, quite frankly, it's paid off in spades.
Oh, yeah.
In 2021, when the then chair, Vanetton, threatened to take away my indemnification the first time, and then in his deposition said he never threatened, through FOIL, we found a week later where they requested Phillips Lytle, the attorney's firm out of Buffalo, to research how to take away the sheriff's indemnification.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So what is technically, let me show my ignorance here, or maybe just I shouldn't word it that way, just so people catch up. What exactly is it that they're going to appeal?
Nobody knows.
Yeah, that's why I'm
There's
confused.
no damages.
No.
All they want to do is not have to admit they were wrong.
Okay, so I'm not wrong, because that's what I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and I thought, well, what is it that they're actually appealing? When they asked me the question, I didn't have an answer.
Right.
So no one has an answer.
So the order invalidated the law that they passed. I guess that's what they're appealing. But
what a waste of money.
Well, and the order also said if you want to go back and vote on it, if you want to do it the correct way,
right.
the legal way,
yeah,
you could revote.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah.
You have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
But they know that it was not done in good faith. They know that it was not done legally the way they did it. And so they're hesitant to do that. Plus, there was no reason for it.
No.
The only reason they did it, according to people that were in the room, was try to convince me to not run again.
How'd that work?
Well,
would you have ran again if all this didn't happen?
Yeah, because
okay.
I would have. When I first ran, I told the deputies when I met with them that I would do 12 years because I feel like in order to change a culture of a place, it's not fair to them to change over every 4 years.
That is true. Yeah.
And then have somebody else come in, no, we're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
And then 4 years later, no, we're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
It's not fair to the employees to do that. So I told them, if I do this, we're going to do it right.
Yeah.
And we'll do 3 terms. And after 3 terms, if you still want me, we'll talk.
Yeah.
And if my wife allows me, we'll talk.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're at right now. So, I always plan to do at least 3 terms.
But going back to how we talked about the lack of coverage and people not even aware that there was this 30 days, I was really encouraged. I know I even reached out and texted you because I was really encouraged while taking out petitions how many people had the question about where does this person stand on the sheriff. And sometimes it wasn't even for the right office, but they're looking out for you. And I know you had that same experience when you were taking out petitions the last time for yourself, that it was kind of overwhelming because you don't know how closely people are paying attention.
And now they are. Where before they weren't. And that's what really thrills me about this current election cycle. We have 3 legislative seats being primaried.
Yeah.
We've never had that.
No.
As long as I can remember, that's never occurred. And it means that people are going, hey, this is our county.
Right.
We need to step up, and we need to look at what's going on, and we need to make sure that things are being done legally and transparently.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled to see the number of folks that are running. I'm thrilled to see the interest because, when you have a group that's been in there, we've got some that have been there 18 years.
Right.
That's a career. That's not public service. And they're, I heard Mr. Henry that's running for Attorney General against Letitia James next time. And he stated it very well. He said, some folks are public servants that are running for office, and some are politicians. And when you start making decisions that are all about you, and you use a public forum to make that, to cause you to feel better about yourself,
right,
you're no longer a public servant.
Exactly.
And when you ignore the cries of your constituents and the needs of your constituents, you're no longer a public servant. So I'm so excited to see a new group coming in that are excited to be public servants.
Yes.
and it's going to be such a refreshing change from what we have.
And you're right. This is almost unprecedented as far as I can remember, because it's even been difficult, and we've had so many of them on the program already.
Yeah.
But it's been difficult, especially with the school budget vote and all of that, to say,
I know.
It gets a little confusing for people because we're just not used to having primaries, and there's a lot of people running this year and that have very strong messages.
Well, and I think you're, especially in this area, you're seeing a resurgence in the Democratic Party, so they're going to be running too. So I think all the voters are going to have a lot of choices. They won't just have one choice.
Right. Which is good.
It's very good.
It's a healthy thing.
Yep.
And I wanted to mention this because I don't think we talked about it last time on the program, or because it might have happened after. Yesterday I had a candidate for Steuben County Legislator, Michael Volino. And I thought that was really nice, and we talked about it on the show. I thought he did a good job. And I was excited to hear his take on. They felt the need to pass that resolution. What a wonderful, I think, just kind of being proactive.
Yep.
Stop wasting our money. Please.
Well, you know, it's funny. I did. I'll be on Talk of the Tiers on another. Somewhere else this Sunday, and that was one of the questions: is what makes Steuben County special? And I said, well, you got to start with the beauty of our county, from Cuca Lake to the hills to the everything in between. But the people, when you look at the vast majority of residents of Steuben County, they're not fooled.
No.
They are very well read, they're very well informed, and they keep up on what's going on. And you can have a slick talker out there.
Not going to work.
They're not buying it.
No.
Because they all have good common sense, by and large, and they all know what's right for our county. And when people start throwing out big terms and trying to encourage them, look over here, look at the shiny thing. While we're moving things over here, they don't fall for it.
They don't.
And
I also think
we're very lucky to be here.
We're very lucky, and that's why I was so encouraged when I was taking petitions out. But I also think it's interesting every time you're on the program that even residents in Chemung and some areas that obviously they were upset from day one, because at the end of the day, you were elected by the people overwhelmingly too. By the way, you were.
I didn't realize it was 78% until I heard Mr. Volino say that on the show yesterday.
That's a lot.
That's pretty good data.
Now, who are those other? No,
you
can't
we
look
got to have a word with those folks.
But no, I just think that's what upset so many people in Chemung and elsewhere, saying, I know I couldn't vote, but this was about the voice of the people.
Yes.
And I think that's why there are so many primaries, because they're saying we need a voice again in Steuben.
We need to be heard.
Yeah. We need people in there that are reasonable, making decisions in our best interest.
Correct.
And when you see
not in their best interest.
Yeah, and you see the cost of how much this is continuing to cost us.
It's up to $250,000 now.
That is unbelievable. $250,000.
Yep.
I would ask the taxpayers, do you think there's a better use of $250,000 in Steuben County?
I can show you one.
Yeah, exactly. We might talk about that a little bit later on. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program. And joining us in the Hesselson studio, Sheriff Allard. All right, let's get right back into it. There's so much to cover. I didn't realize it when I put all this together this morning, and then I like to go on tangents and blow my whole schedule. The one viewer did ask a question. Hey, did you hear the NFL allows the tush push, a move that the Philadelphia Eagles used last year? Do you want to weigh in on that?
And the Bills.
Yeah. Everybody used it. I'm not shocked that they kept that. Anyway, talk about off topic. Let's talk about the staffing analysis. I think last time we were just in the process of this all kind of coming about.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. So we looked at the current staffing of the sheriff's office in wake of the questions about our overtime and really took a deep dive as to where it should be responsibly, and by responsibly I mean the fact that we've gone from 7 full-time to 3 full-time police departments in the county, and we've seen a reduction in the state police in the county and across the state.
Right.
And all of these areas, we just had another homicide a week ago that we investigated, and it's a more dangerous society right now, and it's a more transient society. And with bail reform, the number of arrests continue to go up every year. Yeah. So responsibly, what should we have out there? And we use comparables. We looked at other counties, of similar situations.
I thought that was interesting how you did that, because it actually worked out mathematically that you could.
Very well.
Yeah.
And so we obviously need an increase in the number of deputies, a vast increase. And when you talk about the $250,000, what can we do? Well, we just got a grant for 2 new cars, so with a $250,000, we could put 2 new deputies on right now.
Yeah.
Boom. But we did the presentation, and I had the 2 lieutenants do a good chunk of it, and the undersheriff, simply because I found that if I do the presentation, there's a segment of the legislature that just doesn't hear it.
Right.
They just shut off.
Yeah.
It's the reality of the situation. So they listened as the lieutenant spoke about going on calls by themselves and with no one else in the county. And
in the distance.
Yes.
We talked about, I think, last
traveling
time.
a half an hour from call to call.
Yeah.
And I believe they heard us. And I'm hopeful that they have I gave them a plan, a 5-year plan to be able to accomplish this. I'm hopeful that they follow through on the budget.
Cautiously optimistic.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. There's some folks on the legislature that really want to do good work. There are.
Oh, I agree.
I've never wanted to paint the legislature as a whole as this big monster.
Right.
Because that's not the case.
Right.
There are several members that are super committed to their community and are there for the right reason.
Right.
We just don't hear about them that much.
Yeah.
But I believe that they are, and Legislator Horton from Campbell said immediately, let's look at putting 2 on this year.
Oh, great.
And then he says, I'm not going to guarantee we're going to do your whole plan, but let's look at what we can do in the budget over the next few years.
Isn't that what we always wanted, was a conversation? Let's just have the conversation.
Correct.
Instead of always kind of quashing everything that
Well,
you suggest.
or submit it and we'll talk about it behind closed doors.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And then we'll tell you what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And so it felt like this is how it should work. And I was excited about that.
Good. And
happy that, we had the people there to speak instead of me. But
well, you can go to less meetings now.
that would be lovely.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to happen, at least to some extent, responsibly. They really need to follow the plan.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. Then we've got to find the people to hire.
Yeah.
And we will. We've got some folks coming up. It's funny right now. I've got 3. They're all sons, but 3 sons of current employees that are 2 are in the academy and 1 is getting ready to go in the academy.
That's neat.
And they're interested in being part of the team.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat.
And speaking of being a part of the team, how are the new corrections officers?
So far, so good. I did hear yesterday that the state is reversing course and offering some of them to come back. No harm, no foul.
Yeah.
We'll see how that affects
That's
us.
almost more insulting. Hey, you know how you haven't had a paycheck
Since February?
Since February? By the way, let's forget this all happened.
Yeah. Let's start over.
Yeah.
Let's go to counseling.
Yeah, exactly.
I never cheated on you.
Yeah,
It never happened.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's same with the prison closures and the budget. Everything is so. We talked about this with Phil Palmisano last week. Everything seems to be just one big insult to corrections officers. Who would take the job?
Well, if you look at law enforcement in general over the
that's
last
true,
5 years,
Yeah.
And we talked about yesterday. I went to a meeting with all the Western sheriffs of New York State, and we got into a discussion about the Attorney General's investigations of in custody deaths. And at the end of that investigation, they only come back with 2 things: either we're taking you to grand jury, or there's not enough evidence to take you to grand jury. It never comes back that the use of force was necessary and justified. Well, that opens the door to all kinds of lawsuits and questions. And if you're going to do the investigation, do it correctly and come back with a valid response. But again, that just shows you the attitude of you're wrong.
You're right.
And we're going to try and find a way to show you're wrong. Oh, you can prove you're not wrong. Well, we're not going to say you're not wrong, and we're definitely not going to say you're right.
Yeah.
but we're just going to say there's nothing we can do.
Well, and that's been the case from the beginning. When you already have what you think the conclusion should be, you're working towards that.
Right.
It's
That's
already
not an investigation.
It's not done in good faith.
That's
right from
a
the beginning.
justification.
Yes, absolutely. And just before we talk about some of that with the New York State budget, because we haven't talked about that either. How did the lunch go for the new corrections officers? How'd you do?
Good,
it?
really
Yeah?
good. They enjoyed it.
Yeah.
They appreciapted it.
Yep, their first day on the job, a pizza party. Not too bad
Yeah,
a place
we
to work.
did. Captain Mills and I did 60 pizzas in 3 hours, I think.
And everybody liked them.
They scarfed them.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, they're
it was
used
good.
to having pizza during the strike.
Yeah.
That was their diet for a month.
Yeah.
I better take a break. But when we come back, I do want to pick your brain a little bit about the state budget. If you think there's anything positive out of that $250 billion. $250 billion.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. This is the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program, and joining us in the Hesselson studio. Isn't this great to have this many sponsors?
It is.
Yeah, we love and thank them all. But joining us in the sheriff, excuse me.
And I got to tell you, the Office for the Aging has really expanded their footprint
They're doing great.
in what they're doing to help folks. So it's good to see.
Yeah, and they have an upcoming meeting. I don't have the date right in front of me, but about kind of these scams and fraud going around affecting seniors.
Yeah.
You hear about it every day. It's so
Yeah.
sad. So what did you think, speaking of scams, what did you think about the New York State budget?
It's still not clear.
No.
All what's in there. I know some of the things that are not in there is we pushed a bill and we pushed it towards the budget to try and make our school resource officers part of the state aid package through BOCES.
Yeah.
So that didn't make it. We tried to get the maximum earnings for a retiree raised. It's still $35,000 a year.
Okay.
Tried to get that raised. That didn't. We were told it would make it. That didn't make it. Some of the things that I'm excited that they're not in the budget, but they're still being worked on, and they've made it out of committee with the Assembly and the Senate. Is we have a bill to give confidentiality to peer counselors.
Oh, okay.
For first responders.
Yeah.
That's still moving forward, so
Okay.
I'm excited about that.
Good.
We've been backing that, but yeah.
I mean, first of all, I think the mask ban, I don't know why Governor Hochul took such a strong
stance on that,
and
yeah.
said we're going to fight, and then it's got no teeth. Like always,
Right.
This is what she does.
Well, and again, you look at so much of what comes out of the budget. It's specific to pander to a specific group.
Yeah, so she can put the press release out and say, we're really...
I did it.
I know, and that's what she realized after Lee Zeldin that she's got to do something about public safety.
Right.
But she never does,
No.
just enough that she can have the press release. And
Right.
and that's what I think with the Discovery.
Yeah.
Better than nothing. I mean,
Right.
it's unfortunate that that's how we always respond to the budget. I guess it's better than nothing.
Yeah. Well, when you move the needle from here to here,
Right.
and then you get it back to here, you go, oh, well, that's better than here.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
That's the the loss that we've accepted, I guess.
Yeah.
We were talking about corrections officers earlier, and I didn't get a chance to ask, how was unity in the community with Dr. Coleman?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was well received.
Oh, good.
I told Mayor Mandel, I'm like, you got to work on your scheduling, because the last one we had was outside in the rain, and then we had this one and it was 80 degrees.
It was a
and
beautiful
sunny.
day.
Yeah.
That's funny, but
It was well received, and
Good.
I've known Mayor Mandel for a long time. First as the jail superintendent down in Chemung County.
Oh, that's right.
And he
does a good job.
He does a very good job, and he's very passionate. And I thought that was well done, and it was well delivered. And Senator O'Mara delivered a very good message, and obviously Tom Santulli always does.
Yeah,
And it's something I didn't realize it till I heard Sheriff Schramm's letter read.
Yeah.
How much of his family was in state corrections.
Oh, really? I didn't.
A couple of uncles and cousins, and
Yeah.
but that's the way it is in Elmira. If you're an old Elmira family,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of folks that have
history.
worked for the state, and who knows what the next three are that are closed.
I know.
The
90
cynical
days.
side of me worries that a vindictive governor might target this area again.
An area that doesn't vote for her.
Correct.
There's that part to it.
Yeah.
But that's going back to the corrections officers. So these people put their life on the line every day. They've got a very difficult job, a stressful job. Now you have with the HALT Act, we can go into all that. But also, just to add salt to the wound, you could be told in 90 days you have to uproot your family because we're closing your prison. Either you want
After 20 years.
After 20 years, you can drive 3 hours,
Yeah.
or you're going to have to move.
Yeah.
In 90 days, it's impossible to uproot your family.
Correct. Well, and it's impossible for them to close the facility in 90 days.
Right.
I mean, that's why it's supposed to be a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
It only makes sense, but we don't necessarily make a whole lot of sense with our state budget.
No, I also like with the budget, to also get on a tangent, I like that we're depending so much on the feds, because I have a feeling that's going to go well. But then, to Governor Hochul's credit on this one, she put the checks and balances in there, so it's pretty much up to her on what she can
Yeah.
cut.
I will tell you this. We had our Western Sheriff's meeting, and Sheriff Milby from Wayne County is on the because he has a northern border county. He's on the National Association of Sheriffs,
Okay.
Border Sheriffs, and he just went down to Texas for a week and met with them, and the border crossings since the first of the year have reduced by 95%.
Wow.
95%.
And why don't you see that anywhere?
You don't see that anywhere in the media.
success,
In the northern crossings, he checked with the district over here that covers us in Vermont, and they're also down 95%.
That's great, because that was something that was so overlooked. And I give Congressman Langworthy a lot of credit, because he brought this up, I want to say, relatively early. Because most people, when you think the border, if I say the border, you're not thinking to the north. And that was becoming
Falls.
that was becoming a huge issue.
And actually, the Border Patrol reported to him that right now the biggest movement is folks when ICE comes to town, they're crossing the border northerly into Canada to get away.
Oh, interesting.
And that's what they're seeing in their section right now. But the Mounties have upped their ante and are capturing folks and saying, whoa, no. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. All right, we got to take our last break, wrap up this hour, get your last minute questions in for the sheriff, and we're going to end on all good notes. I saved all the good ones.
That's awesome.
End. Yeah, finally, once. I'm sure I'll change that in a minute. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. It's hard to believe we are wrapping up today's program with the sheriff. There we go. It's the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program, and we're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. So some good news. By the way, how much fun was it? This is one of the main reasons I ran for Irwin Town Council, because of this. I say that jokingly. Is the Forest View Gang Mills Fire Department banquet. That is a blast every year.
It is it's a good time because they're good folks. And, it's a family atmosphere, obviously, with the Beer Weilers.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a joy. I've gone to it every year since I was undersheriff.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And it's always a highlight of the banquet season.
It is.
As you know, I go to a lot of fire banquets.
Sure, of course.
And that one's one of the highlights that I look forward to. It's fun, but also it's in the neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I love it. I do. It's very rare that I can say that I have an event on a Saturday and I'm excited for it.
Right.
Like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just such a fun time. So,
it always is.
As always, thanks for the invite. You got a couple big events coming up. It's already, it doesn't feel it necessarily, but it's getting summertime.
It is.
First of all, I think this is a wonderful idea.
The open before we know it.
I know. The open house is the first one that's coming up. Tell us about this.
So as we're looking at our challenges in staffing and recruiting, and again, I steal my best ideas. I saw another county that did an open house for recruitment, and we're doing so much, not just police, but first police and corrections, but first responder. We're teaming up with the Hammondsport Fire Department and the county EMS, and we're holding an open house July 19th. It's a Saturday. It's going to be at the Hammondsport Fairgrounds. And we're going to have our folks there doing demos. We're going to have firefighters there doing demos, and hopefully EMS there. And I'm going to see if we can get somebody from the county personnel office there for it. It'll be 10 to 4. And we're going to try and drum up some interest and say this is what we do and what you can do if you come work with us.
Yeah.
And if you want to serve your community, be part of the solution. this is how you can do it. And, you know, I was talking with some college kids the other day, and they were asking some a little bit grumpy questions about law enforcement. I said, look, if you want to change it from the inside.
Yeah.
Become part of it. If you don't like what you see, change it from the inside, because it's easy to sit outside and throw rocks.
Of course.
That's the easiest thing
That's
in the
my
world.
job.
Well,
I said it, not you.
but if you want to change things, become part of it. Become part of the solution.
Yes. And then this is going to be fun, the annual golf tournament.
Yes.
You've been doing this how many years, do you think?
This one's going to be another 10-year anniversary.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I know we talk about it every year, but then we don't have a lot of time left on the show, but it's not too late to be a sponsor, of course.
Correct.
It's not too late to get a team together.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cutthroat. It's at Twin Hickory this year.
Yes, we're going to have it at Twin Hickory up in Hornell this year, and Corning Catering will be
Of course.
there for the dog at the turn and the banquet at the end. And
Is Billy playing this year?
He has a team. Yes.
Ooh, that's going to be
Yes,
interesting.
if you want to see Billy Spalding play golf, come to our golf
Which is
tournament.
everybody's dream. It's on August.
it is.
It's on August 22nd. Is
Yes.
there? What's the best way to sign up for a team?
Get a hold of Terry Moore.
Okay.
My secretary at 607-622-3930.
Okay, we'll have plenty of time to promote that before the event, but
Yep.
we want sponsors, of course, to call now so they can be a part of it and to get teams going. The more the merrier.
Yep.
Great food and a fun
And
time.
again, raises money for the Sheriff's Foundation, which donates everything to the Memorial Park.
Right.
And has donated 5 canines
Wow.
to the agency so far.
That's great.
And a bunch of training. They just donated, I think it was $8,000 worth of supervisor liability training.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just amazing what they do.
They do. And finally, just because I don't want people to be upset, boaters course
Yep, every month.
every month. That's simple as that.
Yep.
You have to have your license.
Yes. And actually, we had our Cuco Lake Association meeting a week ago, and there's a little wrinkle. If you rent and you're over 18 and you're from out of state, you don't have to have it as long as the renter has one, the person renting, and gives you a safety course.
Yeah.
And they're responsible for you. Yeah.
We had a viewer bring that up after you were on the last time. I read it
Yep.
on the air, and I said, I think that's a very glaring loophole. It
It
seems
is.
like that
It
should
is.
be maybe looked at a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Well, they did that when they first went with PWCs. You could ride one without, if you stayed in a certain specific area.
okay. I see.
And that, but if you're operating other than renting, anybody, doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter how long you've been doing
Yeah,
it.
that's the big point.
You gotta have it, and you can do it online. My son just did it online. He said it wasn't
Not too bad.
horrible.
Yeah.
So if you can't get into a class, you can go to the New York State Parks and Recreation website, and you can do it online too.
Great. Well, we are at time. Sheriff, thanks for giving us so much time this morning.
Yes.
Let's do it again next month, okay?
It's always enjoyable. Yes.
Tomorrow on the program, tune in, Joe Sempolinski,
Hey.
former Congressman and Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. So join us tomorrow and every weekday morning at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on Big Fox. We'll see you tomorrow.